The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Sunday, the 28th of September, 2025. Welcome to This Week with Mary Holland, CEO of Children's Health Defense, and myself, Polly Tommey. Right, Mary, let's get going. First article from Michael Nevadakis in The Defender. Uncompromising and relentless. HHS to study all possible causes of autism, including vaccines. The FDA will also immediately add warnings to Tylenol and other products that contain acetaminophen, warning pregnant women of a possible link between acetaminophen and autism, and will also advise physicians about the risks. The agency is also set to approve leucovorin, a medication commonly used to treat cancer as an autism treatment. Well, let's just talk about this for a second, because that was pretty amazing what we saw, was it not?
It was very amazing, Polly. We've waited about 30 years for this. And, you know, literally no president as president has talked about autism, apparently since President Johnson. So it was pretty remarkable. It
was remarkable. And it was wonderful on a personal note to hear about that MMR being a danger and to, you know, they're advising to split it up.
Yeah. So that all aluminum should come out, that they've got mercury out, that the hepatitis B vaccine should be delayed until age 12. I mean, more or less, President Trump was very clear that he believes that vaccines are causing autism. And it was, you know, we know that there's been this very concerted effort since the spring to drive a wedge between the president and Secretary Kennedy about all things pharmaceutical. And what was really clear in that press conference is there was no wedge between them.
And what it means for our boys is that they basically said, yes, you parents were right. The MMR isn't a good shot for your kids to have.
Yeah, and so much else. I mean, they acknowledge that autism is environmental, and they acknowledge that acetaminophen, which is being proposed, you know, that doctors up until now have sort of blurred the evidence and said, oh, you know, it's no problem in pregnancy, blah, blah, blah. You know, they said that's wrong. And so they exposed a lot. That meeting, of course, hasn't got a lot of press attention. And it was a little odd. It was like Secretary Kennedy was kind of very limited. And then President Trump just kind of went off. But it was still really a watershed.
Yeah. And it worked for us, the people.
Yeah.
So. Okay, the next article, Brenda Belletti in The Defender. Media claims there's no science linking Tylenol to autism, but studies by major medical institutions raise red flags. Well, first of all, just in defense of them, Tylenol itself does say on its label that pregnant women should not be taking Tylenol. So for all people taking Tylenol because they don't like President Trump, it's a very foolish thing to do.
Yeah, in 2017, apparently Tylenol itself put out a tweet saying, you know, we don't recommend this use in pregnancy. So, yeah, there's not really a difference there.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't once hear the president or Secretary Kennedy say that Tylenol causes autism.
No, they said that it's associated with autism and that the evidence suggests that. And then this article goes on to explain that it may well be a really important cofactor together with vaccines. And Chris Exley, the world's expert on aluminum, is suggesting that Tylenol contains aluminum, which is something I didn't know, Polly. And so perhaps not only do we understand the mechanism as it lowers kind of immunity, but that it also may be additional sources of aluminum that we know is neurotoxic.
So our poor boys just got a whopping great load of aluminum into their brains.
Well, and our boys are old enough, Polly, that they also got a whopping load of mercury. And then, you know, probably the live viruses going into the brain because the blood-brain barrier had been breached. So what they did and what they're continuing to do to children, Polly, truly is a crime against humanity. There's no scientific or other justification for what is happening today.
And this should be a massive warning to those young mothers to be that we, Mary and I, listened to our doctors. We gave the Tylenol to our doctors, children before the vaccines, and we gave the vaccines, and you give it afterwards. That's what the doctors told. And now all of this is unraveling, that all of this was unsafe. Our boys, just look at them, you'll see. So, but the point is that you must question and trust your gut. This is what we're going to do at Children's Health Defence, warn you.
Yeah, you must trust yourself, and you must listen to your own intuition, because your intuition is divine. Your own intuition is your own personal wisdom. And if you have this nagging voice inside of you that says, I just don't think that's right. I'm not sure about that. Listen to that voice. That voice is yours alone. And it's probably right.
Okay, well, staying on the same subject here, back in the Defender, in their government news watch, it's the New York Post that's reporting this. Senator Bill Cassidy breaks with Trump on linking Tylenol to autism. He's a licensed physician who chairs the Senate committee that oversees healthcare policy. And he said there is preponderant evidence that shows there is no solid link between the pain reliever and a spike in autism. So he's losing his marbles as well.
We know that he's essentially been the voice for the pharmaceutical industry within the Senate, and he did confirm Kennedy, but has been his biggest critic in the Senate since, or one of his important critics in the Senate. So, I don't think this is, the truth is, Polly, there are studies on both sides of the issue of acetaminophen and autism, and that's sort of to be expected. That's what science is about, is kind of like discourse and looking at the evidence. And Tylenol itself doesn't agree with this. The precautionary principle says don't use it in pregnancy. It's not proven to be safe, so don't assume it is safe. So I think this isn't a real shock that Cassidy would part from the president on this health-related matter related to medications.
Yeah, and Dr. Suzanne Humphrey's been shouting out about Tylenol for a long time, about the dangers of it. And then our science department, Brian Hooker as well, have been doing independent studies on it. So, there's a lot of good doctors and scientists out there saying, look, this is not a good thing to take. Okay, back in the Defender here. What is leucovorin? FDA announces new autism treatment sparking enthusiasm, but calls for caution. The FDA will approve leucovorin as a treatment for people with autism with cerebral folate deficiency, after studies show significant improvements in speech and communication. Some researchers hailed the move as a breakthrough, but others warned of serious adverse events linked to the drug. So that's interesting, and not something I really know about, Mary, to be honest with you.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know a lot about leucovorin. But what's interesting in this article is that, it kind of proves, Polly, that there's no one size fits all in medicine. So this is pointing out that there have been 25,000 reports to FAERS, the adverse events for drugs, and that there's actually 18% of those 25,000 reports are death reports allegedly from leucovorin. But I think that the bigger message here that's exciting is that there's an acknowledgement that autism is not just genetic, and that it's environmental, and that it's treatable. One thing here that concerned me in this article that's important is, again, Chris Exley, the world's expert on aluminum, is concerned that leucovorin may have aluminum in it. It may be a contaminant. So I think one needs to be very careful, but I'm excited that the world, the president, are talking about treatment for autism. That is really exciting.
Yeah, really important. Okay, Michael Never Darker. Headline here, Impeach Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Critics pan Congressman's plan to launch impeachment bid. Michigan Congresswoman Haley Stevens says she will introduce articles of impeachment against U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Critics called the move a political gambit, citing legal questions and the unlikelihood that Stevens, a Democrat, would be successful given the Republican majorities in Congress. Well, this kind of was bound to happen with the Democrats, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's obviously been a very concerted campaign to dislodge Secretary Kennedy. That there's been this attempt. The only person who can fire Secretary Kennedy is the president, even if they were, well, the Congress could impeach him. And what's important about that, Polly, is impeachment in the Constitution is for treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Obviously, there's no basis for that with Secretary Kennedy. And so, as Rick Jaffe, an attorney we work with, pointed out, this is a branding exercise, and this is dangerous to be using the impeachment tool, which is for really criminal behavior by a high official, is a complete misuse. And here it is sort of like a partisan political stunt. So this is really troubling. It's not really going to go anywhere. She put this out on X and or whatever, on some social media, and she hasn't actually dropped the articles of impeachment, but she knows ahead of time that this really isn't going to fly. So this really is apparently a branding exercise. Apparently this representative in the House of Representatives is going to be running for the open Senate seat in Michigan. So it's really an abuse of the process, which is troubling.
Crazy California at it again. Suzanne Burdick writing this in The Defender. California passes law giving state authority to set its own vaccine guidance. California's new law locks in the federal vaccine guidelines that were in place on January the 1st and allows the California Department of Public Health to issue new guidance based on recommendations set by organizations like the good old American Academy of Pediatrics, which recently said it will no longer follow CDC guidelines.
Polly, it's really troubling. This really pushes the country towards separation, right, of sort of blue and red states, which I personally find really sad and really unhelpful. And it also is making health more partisan, and health is not a partisan issue. As Bobby Kennedy said on the campaign trail, there are no Democrat or Republican children. They're just children. And what's so troubling to me is that these recommendations now in California, Oregon, Washington, and Hawaii are that 6-month-olds should get COVID shots and flu shots. So this 6-month-old infant, Polly, in addition to all the other vaccines, the Hib, the Hep B, the DPT, the other shots that they're going to be getting at 6 months, they're going to add in COVID shots and flu shots as routine recommendations. And you and I both know that is absolutely bad news for these infants. So I'm deeply concerned about this, really deeply concerned about this.
CDC vaccine advisors vote no on COVID vaccine prescriptions, but unanimously recommend individual decision-making for all age groups. In the first 2-day meetings of the new vaccine advisors to the CDC ACIP members, tabled a vote on whether to recommend delaying the first Hep B vaccine until age 1 month. The committee engaged in spirited debate about COVID-19 safety, the need to vaccinate infants and children for COVID-19, and the need for better informed consent for the vaccines. Now, we obviously covered this last week, but the Defender have now put out a great article if you want to go back and just go through it.
Yeah, this is very in-depth reporting. So it was 2 full days, right? It was 16 hours. And to my mind, sort of the key decisions were they're not recommending the measles, mumps, rubella, varicella anymore for children under 4. And they actually did do what they needed to do so that if somebody gives it before age 4, it could be a very serious problem. So that's great news. They tabled the Hep B, which was disappointing. And they basically said COVID shots are individual decision-making, but it's still covered by insurance. It's still got the liability protection. I think the big takeaways for me, Polly, were that people could see out in the open that there are big questions about vaccines and vaccine safety. There are differing views. We've never, ever seen that in public before. So that was super helpful. The other thing that people could see in public for the first time is that the pharmaceutical companies, Pfizer and Moderna, were asked questions. What about this DNA contamination? What about the simian virus 40 promoter that's in your shots? And they didn't respond at all. They just were absolutely quiet. They evaded the questions. I think that's really important, that people are starting to see, oh my God, these people won't even answer the questions about really serious safety issues. They saw the pharmaceutical kind of liaisons, the American Academy of Pediatrics and so on, just being sort of like the cores. So I think it's a new day, right? And I'm very excited about this COVID-19 working group chaired by Retzef Levy, and they just added 15 more people to that. And those people clearly, Polly, they're serious about studying all that went down with the COVID shots, which is essential. So it was Not as much was really achieved as one might have hoped, but on the other hand, it's opening the door to a whole different perspective, a whole different way of treating vaccines.
We have another article for you here by Brenda Belletti and Michael Nevadakis. The key takeaways Mary was just talking about from
Same
last
thing,
week's meeting of new CDC vaccine advisors. So there's that other article we're going to put in the show notes there for you if you really want to go in depth. They did a great job. Unacceptable and wrong. Google admits to censoring COVID content under pressure from Biden administration. Censoring content on YouTube and deplatforming users under pressure from the Biden administration. Calling the government's actions unacceptable and wrong in a letter to Congress, Google offered to reinstate banned accounts. But critics said the company continues to suppress content on other platforms, including its search engine. Well, we can certainly see that.
Yeah, we can. So this was a letter from the law firm King and Spalding to Representative Jim Jordan, who's the head of the Select Subcommittee on Weaponization of Government. And it's, it's an acknowledgement by Google, King and Spalding's client, that they censored people in response to government pressure. I think it's important. Our colleague Scott McCullough, who works particularly in our telecom legal practice, said, this looks like a limited hangout, that they're trying to blame the Biden administration when obviously they were very aligned with censoring this content. And we are still we will probably go back to YouTube to see if we can get replatformed. We had an account for CHD, but it's clear that the search engine optimization is still affecting us. So in the article, it mentions that when you look for Children's Health Defense, just looking for the homepage, you have to go 3 pages down to get to the CHD homepage. So we're still being substantially censored. And Google is a global tool. So it's deeply troubling that the censorship absolutely continues and affects us and affects so many.
It would be fabulous to get our YouTube accounts back. I mean, we have, I don't know how many stories on there that were taken down from the people around the world. So it would be amazing to get that back.
Well, I think we will get back our YouTube channel, Polly. I think what's still a question is really getting the SEO changed so that we actually are more visible than we've been. I think we will get back the YouTube channel, and we're working on that.
Fantastic. Okay, well, look, chemical time bomb. COVID masks created 4.3 million tons of toxic waste. Millions of tons of the disposable COVID-19 face masks are releasing microplastics, toxic chemicals, dyes, and heavy metals into the environment, endangering the well-being of the planet and its inhabitants. The risk could last for decades, according to a study published in Environmental Pollution. Well, that's interesting. I mean, they've been a disaster from the beginning to the end.
In every way, Polly. This fact just shocked me. There were 129 billion masks used worldwide each month during COVID. 129 billion masks per month. It's unbelievable. And these products are not recyclable. And the same people who, wanted us to wear the masks are the same people saying, oh my God, we have to protect the planet and it's in danger. These masks had microplastics. They had bisphenol B, which is associated with male infertility. They had dyes. They had heavy metals. They had fibers. The list goes on. I'm glad that we're paying attention to this now. I'm glad that the world is paying attention to the hazards, not only personally, like to your oxygenation, but also to the environmental costs of these masks.
Okay, digital chokehold, tool developed by tech giants to stop terrorists, enables mass surveillance and censorship. The Global Internet Forum to Counter Terrorism, founded by tech giants Meta, Microsoft, YouTube, and X, is supposed to fight crimes against society's most vulnerable. But the invisible, always-on monitoring system that watches nearly everyone and everything we send, the store and share online, is throttling debate and stifling reforms.
I didn't know about this, Polly. This is really troubling. This GIFCT, Global Internet Forum to Counter Terrorism. with all the major platforms in the world. This is really troubling. They have something called photo DNA, which is a surveillance of all images. It's actually already being used to stop any objectionable content. So clearly, the censorship program is continuing, and it's definitely something I'm really glad we're paying attention to. This digital control grid that includes censorship has not gone away, and it's very serious.
Yeah, and at our conference on November 7th tonight, Catherine Austin-Fitz, Carolyn Betts, they will be there talking about this kind of thing. But also I want to say the UK rapidly pushing the digital ID. I mean, they're saying you will not be able to work without this digital ID in the UK. Yes. It doesn't make any sense because they're saying it's to stop the immigrants and blah, blah, blah. Well, we have national insurance numbers. That is the same thing. We don't need digital ID.
Right. No, I've heard that from our colleague John Stone, who's based in the UK, that Keir Starmer is coming out with this, despite the fact that he and his party are very, very low in popularity, but they are rolling out a digital ID in the UK now. So it's very, very serious. This issue of, you will only have access to the internet, which we all live on at this point, right? For everything, for news, for bank accounts, for employment. If you only have access to the internet with an ID, then we are all literally tracked like cattle pretty much right away. And so this is a big deal, and I'm really glad that we're continuing to report on it. This GIFCT is an integrated system across all these different platforms, and there is no public oversight. This is all being done by so-called private companies that we know are part of these public-private partnerships, as we just talked about with Google. So this is very serious. This is very, very serious.
Yes, it is. Okay, Suzanne Burdick here in The Defender. Doctors and Children's Health Defense to take censorship case to the US Supreme Court after appeals loss. Citing legal doctrines rather than the case's merits, a federal appeals court upheld the dismissal of a First Amendment lawsuit filed by basketball legend John Stockton, Children's Health Defense, and censored Washington state doctors. So, Mary, tell us about this.
Well, this is a pretty simple case about a doctor who wrote an editorial in a Washington paper, and he lost his license over it and was censored. And John Stockton, as a member of the public, but a CHD supporter and somebody who cares about health freedom, he was like, I want to have a right to read this information from a doctor. I don't want to have the content be limited to me as a receiver of information. And so this case is going to the Supreme Court. We need to be, we know during COVID, Polly, that doctors were so heavily censored, and we'll talk next about a California case. There's been huge attempts not only to censor the doctors and prevent us from learning information on all of these social media platforms. And so we at CHD have taken the censorship threat very seriously. Free speech is really not only the right to speak, but it's also the right to hear. And that's what this case is about, is the right both to speak by the doctors and to hear by the public.
All right, well, there's some sort of slightly good news for some members of the military, but nowhere near good enough. Okay, this is the Pentagon ends flu vaccine mandate for reservists, but not for active duty troops. The Pentagon has revised its annual flu shot mandate, requiring reservists to get vaccinated only if they serve 30 days or more on active duty. The change comes amid rising skepticism within the ranks, with some service members questioning the long-term health effects of a career's worth of vaccines. I mean, we've got to get it for the active duty troops. They're really suffering with all the shots they get. They get so many, Mary.
I know, Polly. This is good news for the reservists and for the National Guard, but it doesn't address the real health issues of all of the vaccines that active duty military get. One of the facts in this article that I found really important was from the head of our military chapter, Pam Long. She said that 95,000 active duty people left during COVID. I knew that 8,000 had been terminated against their will related to non-compliance with COVID measure, but 95,000 left, and very few have been brought back. And so clearly the military is having to reckon with this issue around compulsory vaccination, particularly the COVID shots, but also the flu shots and all the others. They compel Hep B and other things depending on deployment. I think, Polly, the military has always been a critical institution in civil society. What happens in the military, whether it's integration, whether it's women in combat, whatever happens in the military always is going to have an impact on the larger society. It's the largest employer in the United States. And so the fact that the military is clearly thinking about this, and this regulation was from May, it's not just here in September, I think it's telling us that the military is really reconsidering their vaccination policies, which is great news.
Please God, it'll be fantastic news. It's that time of year, everybody. It's a fear-mongering article of the week. We'll probably be doing one once a week because they're going to be coming out thick and fast. But this one's from NBC News. And the headline here is, more kids are severely ill or dying from the flu. It's the CDC reporting this. As fewer children get their flu shots, so here you go. It's all because you didn't get your flu shots. Cases of rare, severe complications are rising. Last season, the US experienced the highest number of pediatric flu deaths in 15 years. Then it goes on about a case of a boy who got flu. He did get a flu shot, this boy, but he just missed another one. So therefore, pretty much regarded as unvaccinated. It also says 84% of kids with influenza-associated encephalopathy whose vaccination status was known weren't vaccinated, meaning nothing because you only have to miss one shot to be labelled as unvaccinated. We saw that in COVID. And they ventilated 54% of them. 54% of these kids who had flu were ventilated. You've all watched Vax 3. You can only imagine what that meant. So it's fear-mongering. And also, I mean, really, unless you absolutely have to go to hospital, be careful, people. Watch Vax 3 again. It's free in the movie section of CHD TV. You need to watch it.
The hospitals were very dangerous and are very dangerous places. Polly, you're 100% correct.
Well, I mean, it's the people telling the people that. We're not making this up. We're just telling you what we've heard. And it's yeah, very dangerous, as you said. Well, talking about dangerous things, let's go to Joseph McCullough here. The headline in the Defenders, they look like candy or energy drinks, but products sold openly at gas stations and convenience stores contain dangerous drugs. The FDA issued a nationwide warning about an opioid substance found in some products available in these gas stations and convenience stores. It's been known to be more potent than morphine, yet it's unregulated, lacks approved medical use, and is often sold without proper safety labeling. Now, that is concerning. Opioid-type substance in products that look like candy or energy drinks. Mary.
Yeah, energy shots in gas stations. The chemical is called 7-OH, and it's terrifying. They're targeting children, and apparently it's a byproduct of something called kratom, which is natural, but this is all synthetic. So the FDA has put out a warning label. And apparently, if you kind of get hooked on this, like any opiate, you go through withdrawal. So the advice from Mercola is to, sort of go through a phase thing. But, it's Polly, it just seems like it's open season with drugs, not only vaccines, but every other kind of drug. It just seems like, policies are allowing companies to hook anybody and everybody who's susceptible. And it's really sad.
It is sad. It makes you nervous to travel because when you're at home, you can control to a degree what you're eating, but you travel a lot, Mary. I mean, I know what it's like when I was on the bus. It's not a healthy lifestyle traveling anymore.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Well, talking of traveling, I'm going to be away next week. And guess who is standing in for me? Michael Caine. I know you all love Michael Caine. So he is going to be standing in, which is excellent because he can give you a really good update on the conference because he's part of that, organization committee. Because we do have new people signed up for the conference. We have lots of you I can see are coming as well, which is fantastic. But we have new people. But Michael next week, I'm sure will give you a real thorough rundown.
It is shaping up even more. There are even more great names. We'll wait till next week with Michael, but it's really going to be a great conference. And I'm so excited about it and so eager to see people. We couldn't do it last year because Kennedy was running and it was just too complicated, but we're so excited to be doing it this year. And Austin is a really fun town, as you know, Polly. And so I highly encourage you, if you're sort of on the fence, it's going to be worth it. You're going to be glad that you came.
It is going to be worth it, and it's going to be, and pretty much everyone you see on CHDTV are going to be there as well. So you'll be able to see, I mean, and we've got the Mennonite community coming. I'm so excited about that. Our amazing Dr. Ben Edwards, the brilliant doctor that treated all those children with measles and caught measles himself from that. But yeah, so lots of really great people, and we can't wait to see you all there if you can make it. So now we're going to go to our geoengineering, and then we're going to go for our story of the day. And I will see you in about 10 days, guys. I'm going to go to England. I'm going to go into a family wedding, see my mum, and then I will be back all ready for the conference and to continue. Our CHD team have got everything organised, so we will continue as normal. We've got some wonderful stand-ins for me for my shows, Mary being one of them. So yeah, there's going to be some great things ahead. And as always, if there's breaking news, we will break it on CHD and in the Defender. So keep an eye on our X channel as well. So they're breaking things and pinning things to the top. So there's that. But Mary, wonderful week. We've all worked really hard. You've been especially working hard, being on the Bannon show and doing all those press things as well. So it's fantastic. CHD, Children's Health Defence, really getting out there now.
Yeah. Things are changing, Polly. It's taken literally, I was with Dr. Sherry Tenpenny yesterday, and she gave a great presentation that, what's even happened in the last couple decades isn't so new. Vaccination's been around for 300 years. There was a really strong anti-vaccine movement in the UK from the 1850s to the 1890s. We've seen all this before, but really we are in a different place now because we really do have the evidence that shows there is no science. And we now have actually with Kennedy, somebody inside the government in a position of influence to help us unravel this. So it's a really different context than we've ever had before to stop this, just to stop this.
That's right. So your prayer's doing fantastic jobs. Continue to pray big, stand firm, and never settle. And Mary and Michael will see you next week, and I'll see you soon.
Clayton, you spoke some already about the issues around aluminum nanoparticles. We're told through Dane's work and other that two of the other chemicals that are in this geoengineering are barium and strontium. Can you tell us what you know about those chemicals and how they might affect human health?
Sure. Well, barium is toxic as well. Barium has a lot of toxicity to the kidneys. In particular, it can also cause in higher amounts hypokalemia, arrhythmias, and so on. But accumulated barium is toxic both to the central nervous system, similar to aluminum. These high particulate counts, these high air pollution, and this is what a large part of, in my opinion, geoengineering is deliberate air pollution.
Right.
And air pollution is bad for your lungs. It's bad for kids with asthma. It's bad for people with COPD. It puts you at increased risk for lung cancer. So it's absolutely bad for the respiratory system in a big way, but also, heavy metals of any kind are not good for your nervous system. They're not good for your brain. They're not good for your age-related cognitive status. And so whether it's mercury, whether it's aluminum, whether it's barium, all of these put people at risk for dementing illnesses. And so that's the other consideration that we really have to take in mind. So for barium, I would focus on those. I know that Ed Group and folks in Florida are doing some work with a scanning electron microscope that they've got, and they're seeing large amounts of strontium in samples that they're taking from people living, I believe, in Florida right now. So I'm a little less up to speed on strontium, but I know that it's also a concern for lung cancer. And so, of course, these are all things that are increasing in significantly. We all know that lung cancer is on the rise, and that lung cancer is the leading cancer death in the United States, even though smoking is much lower than it used to be. And so something is driving this. Something's driving a rise in lung cancer. We can argue about our immune systems being adversely impacted due to the mRNA shots, which I think is playing a role as well. But you still need to generate that tumor, even if your immune system is not successfully fighting it off in an early stage. Typically, something is causing those initial mutations in the cells that causes a cancer to form. And this is a leading candidate for me, is this constant exposure that we have to metals in our respiratory tract.
Dane, would you agree that a big feature of geoengineering is the intentional creation of air pollution?
It's certainly the very premise of these operations. I agree with Clayton completely on that. That's the stated purpose, to mimic the temporary toxic cooling effects of a volcano, when we know from the most recent peer-reviewed studies that those cooling effects are, again, temporary, followed by an exacerbated warming.
Okay, we are live now. So can you tell everyone your name, please?
Joanne Mendez.
And your qualifications?
So I'm a family nurse practitioner. I started practicing back in 1977. My history with vaccines back when I was 2, I basically stopped breathing. Fortunately, my family practitioner, Dr. McElhaney, had a drug about that when I was an adult, but I've also, as a family nurse practitioner, have had 6 clients that one vaccine changed their life for the rest of their life. So they've been flu vaccines, they've been hepatitis B vaccines, and the flu vaccine. And my vaccine was an MMR vaccine.
That's what did that to you?
Yeah.
Interesting. And so where did you take all that information? What started to happen to you as you started to collect all this information? When you go through nursing school or the nurse practitioner school, they tell you that they're harmless. And you find out that they're not harmless and they're not being truthful. Now, when I went to nursing school, you actually had to get the client to read the product insert. They don't do that anymore. They give them propaganda and, a lot of false studies. There's never been a study that has been done with normal saline. They were going to do it with COVID. They did not. So what they do is they use neurotoxins, so the study doesn't look bad. So people, unless they've had a family member or they've read the product insert, are not aware of the dangers of vaccines. And then if you're a healthcare provider, just like Dr. Suzanne Humphrey, and you speak up, they demonize you and they ostracize you and they won't hire you. Unfortunately, family physicians have to push vaccines. If they don't push vaccines, they lose their reimbursement from the government. So if you go for a job interview, they love you until you say, well, I've got to let the client read the product insert. And then they will dismiss you. Unless you're going to work for the prison or nursing home, but a family practice facility will ask you to leave because they have to push vaccines. And has this affected your work?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I do other things. I do a lot of alternative therapy today, and I've always been interested in alternative therapy. I do a sound therapy called the ICYMI technology, the AMI 850. It can get rid of pain and inflammation very quickly out of the body. So yes, I love doing what I'm doing. I also look for alternatives to help people, and something that people should be aware of is sodium ascorbate. That if you go back to the 40s, there's a Dr. Frederick Klenner, Klenner, and he reversed vaccine injuries with sodium ascorbate, IM or IV. There's one provider here in Tallahassee that provides sodium ascorbate. It's the #1 treatment for even sepsis. Do they use it in the hospitals? No. Do most people know about it? No. Sodium ascorbate is a powder that you can take orally, and it's like taking you will flood your body with it. So Klenner would tell you take a teaspoon if you don't have access to IM or IV. Take a teaspoon every 20-30 minutes in a glass of water until your symptoms stop or your bowels empty. It's flooding your body with free electrons, getting rid of all the free radicals.
Interesting.
And I would tie that with liposomal C. But if you have a provider that can give you IM or IV sodium ascorbate, if I had a vaccine-injured patient, I'd be all over that.
And you see really good results of that.
Fabulous results. And Klenner did back in the 40s. He tried to convince a lot of people to look at sodium ascorbate. Some did, most of them did not. They followed the conventional path.
You have so much advice. We were talking off camera. Can we just talk about, I know it's a bit random, but can we talk about ultrasounds for a second? Because you were giving us some good advice.
Yeah. So I'm all about sound, and there's sound that can, so if I could talk about the AMI, the system that I love, I got involved with that about 4 years ago. I met Mandara Cromwell, who was the inventor, and she showed us a case study. It was a horse that was the equivalent of an 80% Achilles tear. In 6 weeks, this horse was a complete heel. The MRI could not find a scar. That horse won in its class a year later.
Putting it in its feed?
So it's a sound therapy, and you could put the sound therapy device on his back end.
Oh, right.
And for people, humans, we rest our feet on it, or we rest our hands on it. Most people sit there and rest their feet on it. So I've had people with dementia come back around. I've had people they were scheduled for both knees being replaced, and today they're using the AMI and they have the original knees and they're riding their bike. And so there's a whole new world out there that I enjoy. So since I'm so married to sound, I have a lot of family members and friends who are pregnant, and I just recall my midwife showing me videos on the dangers of fetal ultrasound. And I just felt like I was at the last Western Aid Prize conference, and I went to Sally Fallon and I said, we need more articles about fetal ultrasound. I said, this is another cause of autism and neurological damage. It damages the eyes, the ears. It causes necrosis of the cell, and we can't point these high frequencies at a fetus and expect the fetus to grow properly or without challenge. So I think we should put an end to it unless it's life-threatening. If it's life-threatening, that's a different story, and you better be in really good hands who know how much energy that they're pointing at that fetus and how much time they're spending at that spot.
I mean, because they're really pushing them now.
They are.
I have a family member in England, and they do it every week.
Yeah.
How have we got to that?
Because now the fetus doesn't die immediately. They don't even show any damage. In our country, we don't do safety testing. If you really want to take a deep dive, then get Jim West's book on the 50 studies that have been done, and you will have no doubt in your mind that fetal ultrasounds cause harm to the fetus.
Incredible. Thank you for that information. Do you have any other words of wisdom like that, especially for the pregnant mother? You know, it's so important. I feel that we really need to help the pregnant mothers. Right now, they're getting 4 shots and maybe Wogam on top of that. The baby gets Hep B and vitamin K as soon as it's born. I mean, it's a death cocktail.
I think that these physicians that are recommending these therapies have to be tried in court. I think that they're uneducated and they're pushing products and devices that they are clueless about. So when we put our babies at risk, we should be responsible as providers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go back to, I want to hear from you, if you don't mind, with your experience on what on earth happened through the COVID era.
Oh, that was planned by Fauci and Gates a long time ago. That was the oligarchs are in control. Even as you know, we like to think our president is in control. I don't think the last president that had a handle on this or were willing to break the oligarch code, I would say would be JFK. That's how far back we have to go. All the others have been manhandled by oligarchs. The people that have the money have the power. And we have to expose that. David Martin is a great person to interview, and he can expose those individuals to you. But as long as we're not exposing them, we're going to continue this problem.
Now, what do you know about the COVID shots and shedding? Do you know anything about it? Because many people saying to us they feel so ill when they're around someone that's had
So if you think about sound, we resonate. Our bodies are beyond the physical body. We've got a biofield around us. So if I walk into a room where they just had an argument, you feel that. So if you're walking into a room where somebody just had a shot, is thinking negative thoughts, thinks their body is going to get sick if they don't get that, that's a low energy. So unless you're walking in saying, all right, my body can take this, and you're doing things to keep your field in balance. So there's another whole world out there, like biogeometry, where there's compression waves coming from 5G. 5G was rolled out the same time COVID showed up. There were 10,000 5G antennas in Wuhan. People fell out. They could not come out with 5G without some kind of story, because everyone would have pointed the finger at 5G. The symptoms are the same. COVID and 5G, electric sensitivity are the same. I've been treating people with 3G, 4G sensitivity, and then when 5G came out, that was even a huge game changer.
It's hard to know where to go now where there's not a snuck-in 5G.
It's everywhere. It's coming from the satellites. So now where Dr. Ibrahim Karim, he teaches you how to convert the compression wave. So if you've got a toxic compression wave coming from your device, right, your cell phone, or from a satellite, then there are things like tensor rings. There's things that you can make that creates a field that's affecting your field in a positive way. Since they turned on 5G, I measure the energetic field of a person's body. Our chakras should be going clockwise. A fetus inside of us should be going clockwise. Since they turned on 5G, most people that are in that field, they're going counterclockwise. So there are some things that you can do. One is to get into a scalar field. And once you're in a scalar field, your body will start going clockwise again. But most people don't even know they're going counterclockwise. But that's putting stress to their body. So we have people coming up with, what can we do to correct this field? And there are a number of solutions.
Do you think we're getting so many reports of people with horrific headaches, never had headaches before? Do you think that's 5G? Do you think that's shedding, or is it a mixture of everything?
So if you had the shot, any vaccine, but specifically COVID, if you had the shot, and you say you took 20 people and you looked at their blood, their inflammatory markers would be through the roof on any vaccine, through the roof. If people knew what their blood looked like once they received the vaccine, they would stop getting the vaccine.
Yeah.
So you'd get 20 people, you go ahead and show the inflammatory markers, and then I'm trying to think the other thing that is a dark field blood analysis, where you're taking their blood and you go before and then you go after. And it looks like a bunch of coins stacked up. The blood is moving like a highway, and then all of a sudden it's like, and you're going, okay, that is a very toxic situation that you've just now done to insult your body. My grandmother as a child told us, never ever sacrifice your health. Don't allow anyone to take your health. If you know it's bad for you, do something else, because if you have your health, you're a millionaire. You can do anything. You don't have your health, you'll do anything to get it back. And it's getting harder and harder to get your health back.
What is your advice to the general public around the world, indeed, for next year, 2024? Because we anticipate maybe a rough year.
Yeah.
What is your advice?
Yeah, so I like to share the vaccine inserts with everyone. And you don't make a move until you've read the product insert. And do the vaccine quiz. I don't know whether it was CHD. Was it you all that passed?
We were sharing it, but it wasn't from us.
That was brilliant. Every provider should be forced to take that vaccine quiz. I've sent it out to my entire family, and then people will wake up and they'll make better decisions. And you know, find somebody that can do a study where they're showing how the inflammatory markers of everybody receiving the vaccine is going through the roof. And then do the dark field blood analysis and show them. And then have them answer some questions. Would you still do this vaccine after knowing how you've insulted your body?
A lot of, well, pretty much everyone, to be honest, is dealing with anger in their family. It's caused massive division the last 3 or 4 years.
That's counterclockwise. So when Dr. Jerry Tennant, I don't know, do you know Jerry Tennant? Okay, Jerry Tennant is healing his voltage. And so when we start going counterclockwise, we are challenged in a different way, almost as if our batteries are switched. And when your batteries switch, what feels good to them feels bad to us. What's bad to us feels good to them. And so a lot of that is the issue. And so they're out of sorts. When you're out of sorts, your anger is one of the first ones that show up.
And then there's the frustration, which you've been hearing from the last interview, that you can't get through to people you love, and they just keep taking another shot or whatever it is, and it's very frustrating.
Yeah, it's Russian roulette for them. Some people like to play Russian roulette, and some people are ready to leave. I mean, there are people that, they're done. I don't know how else to say it. They're not thriving to be in the happy, healthy plane of life.
Do you have any other advice for our people? Is there anything else you want to say?
Do you all have anything to say?
Health is elusive.
Yeah.
You pursue it one thing at a time. Don't try to change your whole life at once, or just overwhelm you and drive you crazy.
I don't know if they would be able to hear you back there. What did he say? Can you repeat that?
No.
Don't try and change things. Just go easy on yourself.
Well, too many things at a time. For example, COVID, all they had to say, if the kids are sick, keep them home. If you're sick, stay home from work. Get plenty of rest. Drink your fluids. Take whatever supplements you found help your immune system recover from any type of flu-like virus, and go about life as general. We would have all been fine. We wouldn't have had thousands of people lose small businesses that they've had for years and put the whole country in a disarray. It's very simple.
Yeah. I mean, there are virologists that have actually said, we have never seen a virus. Yeah.
There's that, for sure.
Yeah.
And frankly, the lesson of COVID would have been wonderful if the medical profession had taught the populace this is an opportunity to learn how to take care of your immune system.
I know, I get that. I mean,
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm very grateful you're sitting there giving us this advice, and thank you for the ultrasound advice. That's really important.
Yeah.
And any other advice you ever have, do contact us so we can educate the young mum.
So I have Mom's 10 Steps. I'll send you my email, Mom's 10 Steps. I didn't bring it with me.
And is this something people can find for themselves?
I don't even have a website.
Okay.
One day, but anyway, if I'll send you Mom's 10 Steps, and you can do whatever you want with it.
I'll read it out to the young mum.
That's fine.
You've got to help the young mum. appreciate your wisdom
Yeah.
and your patience sitting here with us.
Yep.
And
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yep.